The house came to us quietly. No auction, no lawyers fighting over it. Just a will, signed 20 years earlier. It belonged to my wife's uncle. He had no children. He rarely had visitors. And he never talked about the house. We moved in during late autumn. The place felt old, but not abandoned. Everything worked. Plumbing, electricity, heating. Nothing felt wrong. Over the years, we renovated almost every room. New floors, new kitchen, repainted walls. We made it ours. Except for one room, the bathroom. It still had the original tiles, the original tub, and the original mirror. It was built into the wall, large, framed in heavy wood. Slightly too large for the space, but we never questioned it. For 20 years, we stood in front of that mirror, brushing our teeth, washing our faces, getting ready for work, watching our children grow taller in its reflection. It was just part of the house, until the day it broke and we realized it had never been just a mirror. We didn't plan to touch the mirror. The renovation was supposed to be simple. Replace the old tub, retile the lower half of the wall, maybe repaint the ceiling. That was all. The contractor arrived on a Tuesday morning. He had worked on our kitchen years before. Reliable, quiet, practical. He examined the bathroom for a long time, longer than necessary. He knocked lightly on the tiles, then on the wall beside the mirror, then on the mirror frame itself. The sound was different, not hollow, not solid either. He frowned.
Strange installation,
he said. I asked what he meant. He shrugged.
It's not mounted like most mirrors.
He tried to slide a thin tool behind the frame. It didn't move. It wasn't hanging. It was embedded, almost fused into the wall. He checked the wall studs with a detector. The reading paused.
There's space back there. This is it, the code.
What does it mean?
It unlocks the truth. Watch.
The dust!
He decided to remove it before replacing the tiles. He scored the caulking around the frame. The seal cracked, dry, old, almost brittle, like it hadn't been touched in decades. He pulled once, nothing. He pulled harder. The frame shifted slightly, and that's when it happened. The corner splintered. The glass cracked sharply, not like normal glass. It sounded thicker. He stepped back immediately. A fine line spread across the surface, then another, then the entire center gave way. Glass fell inward, not outward, inward, into darkness. There was no drywall behind it, no insulation, just open space.
It's so dark inside, I can't see anything. What's in there?
Cold air moved across the bathroom. Not a draft from outside, something still, trapped. The contractor didn't speak. He leaned closer with his flashlight. The beam disappeared into the wall, then stopped. Not on insulation, on something flat, something vertical. A surface, painted black. And that's when we understood. The mirror had never been decoration. It had been a cover for something intentionally hidden. For a few seconds, none of us moved. The bathroom felt smaller, the air heavier. The hole where the mirror had been was almost perfectly rectangular, too clean to be accidental. The edges weren't broken drywall, they were framed, reinforced. The contractor ran his hand along the inside edge. "There's trim behind this," he said quietly. Trim meant design, not damage. He widened the opening carefully. More glass fell inward. The flashlight beam revealed wooden studs, but they weren't load-bearing. They were forming a frame, like a doorway. But there was no visible door, just darkness. The black surface we had seen earlier wasn't paint. It was paneling, smooth, deliberate. The contractor leaned further inside. His flashlight caught something metallic, a hinge, hidden along the inner edge. There had been a door, installed from the inside, not from the bathroom side, which meant the mirror wasn't covering a cavity, it was covering an entrance. We stood there in silence. 20 years. 20 years we had leaned toward that mirror, never realizing something had once leaned back. The contractor hesitated. "You want me to open it?" I didn't answer immediately, because suddenly I remembered something. Sometimes, late at night, the bathroom had felt colder than the rest of the house. We blamed poor insulation. Sometimes the mirror would fog unevenly after a shower. One side clear, the other slower to react. We thought it was just old glass. Now I wasn't sure. The contractor reached inside. He pushed against the black panel. It moved, slowly, silently, like it had been maintained, not abandoned. The opening widened just enough for the flashlight to enter fully, and that's when we saw it. Not the whole room, just the first detail. A tripod, standing several feet back, perfectly aligned, facing us. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. Tripods don't grow inside walls. They are placed, measured, adjusted. The contractor stepped back slowly. Neither of us spoke. The silence inside that hidden space felt intentional, like it had been waiting. The tripod wasn't alone. Mounted on top of it, an old camcorder, not decorative, not broken, positioned with precision. Its lens pointed directly toward the opening in the wall, at the exact height of the mirror where our faces had been for 20 years. The contractor didn't step inside. He stayed at the edge, like crossing the threshold would mean something. I took the flashlight from him and leaned in further. The room was smaller than I expected. No windows, no vents, no visible wiring connected to the house. Just enough space for one person to stand and operate the camera. The walls were insulated from the inside, thicker than necessary, soundproofed. The floor was unfinished concrete, but swept, not dusty like the rest of the cavity. Someone had been in there. Not decades ago, later than that. I stepped fully inside. The air was stale, but not moldy. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. The camcorder was from the late 80s, professional grade, mounted firmly. The tripod legs were marked with tape, measured height indicators, preset. I followed the lens with the flashlight beam. The alignment was exact. If someone stood at the sink, the lens captured their face perfectly. If someone stepped into the shower, the angle shifted slightly to include the glass door. This wasn't random placement. It was calibrated, carefully, intentionally. I turned slowly back toward the broken mirror opening. From inside the hidden room, the bathroom looked different. The sink seemed closer, the light harsher, more exposed. The mirror had never been fully reflective. I reached down and picked up a large fragment of glass from the floor. From the bathroom side, it looked normal. From this side, it was darker. Not fully transparent, slightly tinted, like observation glass. My hands started to feel cold, because that meant if the light was on in the bathroom and the room behind stayed dark, the mirror would reflect perfectly. But from this side, you could see everything, every movement, every gesture, every private moment. I slowly looked back at the camcorder. It wasn't pointed randomly, it was aimed, and it had been waiting. For a moment, none of us touched the camera. It felt wrong to disturb it, like entering a space that was never meant to be entered. The camcorder was coated in a thin layer of dust, but not evenly. The buttons were cleaner, especially the eject button. I pressed it. Nothing happened, no sound, no mechanical movement. The battery compartment was empty. There was no power cable connected, which meant whoever used it didn't leave it running. They turned it off, deliberately. I stepped further into the room. Behind the tripod, built into the back wall, were narrow wooden cabinets, painted the same black as the walls, almost invisible at first glance. I opened the first one. Inside were VHS tapes, stacked vertically, labeled in handwriting. Dates, nothing else. No names, no descriptions. Just dates. The earliest tape was from 1989. The latest, 3 years after we moved in. I felt something shift in my chest. We moved in 2003. The last tape was dated 2006. That meant someone had access. After the house legally belonged to us, the contractor stepped closer. You had no security issues? No. No break-ins. No alarms triggered. No unexplained damage, which made it worse. Because it meant if someone entered, they didn't force their way in. They used something else, a key, or familiarity. I pulled one tape at random. The plastic case was slightly warmer than the others, maybe from my imagination, maybe not. On the spine, written in fading ink, April 12th, no year. I checked the others. Most had full dates, but a few, only month and day, recurring, the same dates, year after year. My birthday, my wife's birthday, the day our daughter was born. Not every year, but enough to not be coincidence. The camera wasn't random. The dates weren't random. Someone wasn't just watching. And the last recording was dated 1 week after the uncle's death. We didn't watch the tapes inside the hidden room. It didn't feel safe. Not physically, psychologically. We carried a small box of them into the living room. The contractor had already left. He said he'd return tomorrow. I wasn't sure I wanted him to. We still had an old VHS player in storage. I hadn't used it in years. It felt wrong that we still had it, like we had been meant to. I chose one of the earliest tapes, 1989, before we owned the house. I inserted it. The television screen flickered, static. Then an image appeared, grainy, monochrome, the bathroom, the same tiles, the same mirror, the same light fixture above the sink, but slightly different wallpaper. A man entered the frame, not facing the camera, facing the mirror. He washed his hands, looked tired, older than the photos we had seen. It was my wife's uncle. The angle was perfect, centered on his reflection, not on his back, on his face. He never once looked toward the lens because he didn't know it was there. The tape ran for 40 minutes. Nothing dramatic, routine, brushing teeth, shaving, leaving the room. Then static again. I ejected it. My wife hadn't spoken the entire time. I chose another tape, 2004, 1 year after we moved in. I hesitated, then pressed play. The image appeared, our bathroom, exactly as we remembered it, and then my daughter walked in, small, 7 years old. She stepped onto the stool to reach the sink, brushed her teeth, looked into the mirror, smiled at herself. I felt something collapse inside my chest. Because the framing was tighter now, adjusted, refined, as if someone had recalibrated the height. The camera angle matched her face perfectly. That meant someone had entered the room after we moved in. To adjust it, the tape continued. 10 minutes, then 15, then 20. Nothing unusual until the very end. The bathroom was empty. The lights were off. Only faint hallway light entered through the door. The image was dark, but visible. Then, the frame shifted slightly, just a fraction. Not enough to be obvious, but enough. The angle dipped lower, as if someone had touched the tripod. I rewound it, played it again. The shift happened again. There was no one in the bathroom. No movement in the reflection, no door opening, no shadow crossing the floor. Just the camera, adjusting, in the dark. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching me, not in a supernatural way, in a structured way, like something had been designed, and we had stepped into it. I drove to the county records office because I needed something solid. Paper doesn't lie. Blueprints don't hallucinate. Concrete facts don't move tripods in the night. The building smelled like dust and toner. Fluorescent lights hummed above me. A clerk brought out the original construction blueprints from 1974. I unrolled them across a metal table. Kitchen, bedrooms, bathroom, everything exactly where it should be. Except behind the bathroom wall. There was nothing. No cavity, no service shaft, no hidden chamber. On paper, the space I had stood in yesterday did not exist. I checked renovation permits. There were none. No structural modifications in 50 years, yet the hidden room was insulated, wired, finished with intention. It wasn't improvised. It was integrated. Then I noticed something strange in the corner of the blueprint. Faint pencil lines, almost erased. I tilted the paper toward the light, and there it was. A small rectangle, exactly where the hidden room should not exist. 2 letters inside it. OBS, observation. The word felt heavier than it should have. I asked if there were revised versions of the blueprint. The clerk hesitated. There was one, filed 3 months after the house was approved for construction, restricted access, signed by the homeowner. When I saw the name, my stomach tightened. It wasn't a contractor. It wasn't an architect. It was a private individual, and I had seen that name before. On the back of the bathroom mirror, carved faintly into the frame, the mirror wasn't decorative, it was installed with purpose. It was part of the design. When I pulled into the driveway that afternoon, something felt wrong immediately. The upstairs bathroom light was on. I was certain I had turned it off. There was no mirror anymore, just the exposed opening in the wall and darkness behind it. I walked toward the bathroom slowly. The light flickered once, then steadied. The hidden room looked the same at first glance, but then I saw it. The tripod had shifted, just a few inches, but enough. The camera was no longer pointed at the empty wall. It was angled toward the doorway, toward me. I hadn't touched it. My wife hadn't touched it. No one had entered the house, unless they had. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Silence. Then breathing. Slow, measured, and a whisper. You weren't supposed to find it. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. The red light on the camera blinked. Once, then again. Recording. For the first time since we broke the mirror, I understood something clearly. We didn't uncover the room. The room uncovered us. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound felt calculated. The pipes ticking, the floor settling, even my own breathing felt monitored. By morning, I stopped thinking like a homeowner. I started thinking like someone inside a pattern. OBS observation. If our house had been designed to watch, then why build only one? I searched the original homeowner's name again. Not socially, not casually. I went through archived property transfers, county by county, state by state. The name appeared 6 times between 1972 and 1986. 6 different houses, all suburban, all modest, all sold within 5 years of construction. I pulled archived listing photos from old real estate databases, living rooms, kitchens, backyards, normal, until I started focusing on the bathrooms. Vintage mirrors, large, wall-mounted, almost identical to ours. Same beveled edge, same unusual thickness. My hands started shaking on the mouse. I cross-referenced renovation permits for 2 of the other addresses. Both properties had bathroom remodels in the last decade. Both listed unexpected structural discovery in contractor notes. No details provided. One address was only 3 states away. I found a local newspaper archive. Short article, small column. A couple had temporarily relocated during structural remediation. They declined interviews. The house was later resold quietly. No photos of what was found. No public statements. Just silence. The same kind of silence sitting behind my bathroom wall. Then I saw something that made my chest tighten. A forum post from 8 years ago. Anonymous user. Title: Hidden Room Behind Bathroom Mirror. The post had been deleted, but the preview text was cached. It read, "Camera pointed at mirror. Feels wrong. Anyone else?" The account had no other activity. No replies. Thread locked within hours. I leaned back in my chair. 6 houses. Same buyer. Same mirror design. Same timeline. And at least one other person who found something. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was replication. A system repeated across states. I slowly turned my head toward the hallway. The bathroom door was open. The house was quiet. Too quiet. If there were 6 houses, how many had never been renovated? How many mirrors were still intact? How many families were living in front of a lens they didn't know existed? My phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was a blocked ID, no number, no data, just a call. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked slowly toward the bathroom. The red light inside the hidden room was already blinking, recording, as if it knew I had learned something. And for the first time, a thought entered my mind that I couldn't push away. What if the cameras weren't recording for the past? What if they were transmitting? The footsteps above me didn't stop. They moved slowly, measured, as if whoever was up there wasn't afraid of being heard. My wife was downstairs. I could hear the television faintly from the living room. She hadn't reacted, which meant either she didn't hear it, or the sound wasn't meant for her. The attic hatch was in the hallway ceiling. I had opened it once before, years ago. Just insulation, dust, nothing else. The sound shifted again. A slow drag across wood. Not light, not small. Heavy enough to press into beams. I grabbed the stepladder from the laundry room. Each step toward the hallway felt amplified. The house felt aware. I positioned the ladder under the hatch. The ceiling above it looked slightly different. Subtle, but wrong. The paint around the frame was cleaner, less aged than the surrounding ceiling. It had been opened recently. My hands felt cold as I pushed the panel upward. Dust fell lightly into the hallway air. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness. Then I lifted myself high enough to see inside, and the darkness shifted. There was no person, no movement. But the attic was not what I remembered. The insulation had been pulled back, neatly, deliberately, creating a narrow pathway across the beams, leading directly above the upstairs bathroom. And along that path ran a cable. Not modern, not standard household wiring, shielded, reinforced, independent. It disappeared into a small black box mounted between 2 rafters. The box had no label, no branding, no indicator lights, just a single thin antenna wire extending upward toward the roof. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The dust around the box was disturbed, fresh handprints, not mine. And next to the box sat a small, newly installed device, compact, matte black, with a tiny lens on its surface, pointed downward through a drilled hole in the ceiling beam, pointed at the hallway, at the attic hatch, at me. I froze. It wasn't just watching the bathroom anymore. It was watching anyone who tried to look. Below me, the television downstairs turned off. Silence filled the house instantly, complete, artificial. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but I did. A message. No number. No sender. Just text. You weren't supposed to go up there. Above me, something clicked inside the black box, a soft internal relay, activating. And in that moment, I understood something with terrifying clarity. The houses that burned didn't burn because they were discovered. They burned because someone climbed too high. The black box emitted a faint rising hum, low, electrical, alive, and the hallway light below me flickered once. After we moved, I avoided mirrors. At first, I told myself it was stress, but then I noticed something small, something almost invisible, a delay. When I moved, my reflection followed half a second later, barely noticeable, but real. I tested it. Fast movements, turning lights on and off, stepping out of frame. The delay remained exactly half a second. Then one night, I stepped away from the mirror, but my reflection didn't. It stood there, looking at me, not copying, observing. Then it slowly leaned forward, as if trying to see something behind me. The next morning, the delay was gone. Everything normal again, except one thing. In every mirror in the house, there was a small black dot in the corner, like a lens. Some houses aren't abandoned, they're operated.